Did you find a diamond or is it just a crystal? Well, the difference is that if your stone is a crystals, you can have a beautiful little stone for collection and also for good luck, but if you have found a diamond, things change. It is not by selling a diamond. You can have the money to pay your bills or even the money to not work for the rest of your life. It all depends on the size and quality of the stone. It happens that many people confuse a crystal with a diamond, and that is not a problem because if one day you try to sell a crystal thinking it is a diamond, the experts will realize your mistake, but the problem is the opposite. You sell a diamond as if it were a crystal or even throw it away as if it were a common stone. So in this video, you will learn the differences between a crystal and a diamond. You will know how much a crystal is worth and how much a diamond is worth. You will learn about a practical, homemade and inexpensive test that is useful for knowing if your stone is a real diamond, and you will know which one is the best. Procedure you need to do to sell a diamond if you ever find one. This is the channel Stones and Finds. I'm Jair Montero and you are about to receive a large amount of very useful information in a clear and straightforward manner, so if you liked it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Well, for most people who already know a little about precious stones, it may seem easy to tell a diamond from a crystal, but for most people like us ordinary laypeople, it seems like they are all the same thing. The first thing you need to know is what each of these two stones are. What is a crystal and what is a diamond? It may seem a bit unnecessary, but this information will help you a lot and you will already understand why. First, the word crystal comes from the Greek, which means similar to ice. Any translucent stone can also be called a crystal, but the most common is the quartz crystal and the fourth is a silicon oxide, and in fact it is a mineral that is most abundant on Earth. That is, there are many crystals out there, and in fact crystals look like ice, but there may be other colors, such as amethyst, which is purple, rose quartz, citrine, which is yellow, smoky quartz, and some others. These stones, the crystals, are fragile against impact, but have a hardness of 7 against scratches, which is the hardness on the mole scale. Keep this information in mind, because it will be useful in a little while. Crystals have a relative density of 2.66, that is, they are 2.66 times heavier than water. Keep this information in mind, because it will be useful in a little while. Music, now it's a diamond. A diamond is formed almost entirely or exclusively of carbon, which is the same as graphite, which is the same as the ashes that remain after a fire consumes everything. In other words, it is what remains after something burns completely. There may be several colors of diamonds. They can also be crystalline, but they can be opaque and can also be black. It is very resistant to impacts and has a hardness of 10 on the mole scale, the maximum hardness, and has a relative weight of 3.5, which means it is 3.5 times heavier than water. Now I know you already know that although these stones may look similar, they are completely different from each other. And why is it important to know this? Since minerals are different, their internal crystalline structure is also different. This gives each of them different characteristics that you will learn now because of this difference in materials. Each of these stones crystallizes in a different way. The fourth crystallizes in a hexagonal shape, that is, with 6 sides and a pyramid at the tip. Every crystal with 4 sides grows in this way in nature, even though it may later change or break. A diamond has some possible growth forms that are very different from quartz. The diamond crystallizes in a cubic shape with 4 sides instead of 6. It has the shape of a balloon, with a double tip on both sides, also called a pawn. This shape can also break with the action of time and wear out. The diamond's transformations are the dodecahedron with the figure of 12 sides and the perfect cube shape, which are similar to a bingo die, as these shapes are also natural crystallization, although they are much rarer and generally used only for collection. Now you know the difference between crystal and diamond in their natural crystallization forms, but what happens here is that there are many cases in which crystal is broken and everything is irregular, and so is diamond, and some stones may be polished, and now how do you identify them? So, let's differentiate these stones when they are broken. I said that knowing the formation of the two stones is important, and here is another reason. Everyone knows that the hardest mineral in the world is diamond. But the diamond can be broken. However, the diamond will never break like a crystal, and you will learn this now. Observe this stone, look carefully and tell me what it could be. If you think this stone could be a diamond, what you are seeing here are samples of broken quartz crystals, and all irregular quartz crystals break in 2 ways, irregular and concord. Irregular does not need much explanation. Generally, when a quartz crystal breaks, it remains completely smooth in the place, and this irregularity ends up increasing its shine, which makes many people confuse stones in this state with diamonds. The concord fracture of a quartz crystal is a shell shape. In this case, try to notice small curves at the time of the break. We can see this type of break in glass and also in obsidian, which is a natural glass. Sometimes the shape is identical to the shape of a perfect shell, even with grooves. A diamond will never break like this. It is difficult to get images and videos of broken diamonds, but look at these stones now. These are authentic diamonds. It may be a little more difficult to visualize because of the images, but diamonds only break in an irregular manner, never in a similar way to quartz crystals. The difference between a diamond and its irregular breakage is that they can leave straight lines where the breakage occurred, and these lines are extremely characteristic of a diamond. Crystals can leave irregular lines when broken, as irregular and curved lines in a completely random manner, but diamonds leave straight lines, as if they were the appearance of brushed steel. They are not straight lines, but several lines following in the same direction where the breakage occurred. As I said, they are similar to the appearance of brushed steel. Let's now analyze a crystal and a diamond with a list of differences. First, we can find crystals of practically all sizes, small and large, but diamonds are always very small stones. It will be very rare to find a diamond that weighs more than 1 gram. Yes, there are large diamonds, but they come from very deep mines, and even so, they are extremely rare. Even so, the crystals will be much larger than any diamond. Another thing is another important characteristic that comes precisely from the characteristic of the stones, which is the brightness. No matter how shiny the crystal is, it cannot be compared to the brightness of a diamond. In gemology, this is called the refractive index, because every stone is capable of absorbing and reflecting a certain amount of light. Even diamonds are completely clear. They reflect more light than a crystal. The brightness of a crystal is called vitreous brightness, which means that it is similar to the brightness of glass. The diamond has a shine called adamantine brightness or metallic brightness, which means that the shine of a diamond is similar to the brightness of a metal. Diamond does not rise but also reflects light at the same time. I will try to illustrate this in a very simple way for you. If it were possible to make a crystal window glass of pure quartz as crystal clear as possible, this crystal video would seem almost invisible because it is so crystal clear. But if it were possible to make a window glass made of the purest and most crystalline diamond possible, you would still be able to see your reflection in it. That is, in addition to seeing the other side, you would see yourself as if you were in front of a faded mirror. An example of this is the glass called reflective glass, which is used today in architecture, which is a glass with a semi-metallic finish that has precisely this effect. Another thing that comes from the characteristics of the stones is related to weight. I mentioned a little while ago a characteristic that you should keep in mind. Here we would use it later because the time has come. I talked about relative density. The density of a room is 2.66 and that of a diamond is 3.5. This means that a diamond weighs 3.5 times more than water and quartz weighs 2.6 times. That is, if you could have a liter of diamonds, it would weigh 3.5 kilograms, and if we had a liter of crystal, it would need 2.6 kilograms. Or diamonds are much heavier than crystals when comparing stones of the same size. Of course, since diamonds are usually always small stones, you may have difficulty feeling this weight in your hand, but the relative density test can be easily done at home with a common precision scale that has at least 2 decimal places after the comma. And finally, the most important diamond characteristic of all is hardness against scratches. This is the characteristic that makes diamonds in nature when worn become practically smooth and polished, since other stones usually cannot scratch diamonds. Unlike crystals that can be dull and worn, crystals have a hardness of 7 and diamonds have a hardness of 10, but this hardness is not even close because this scale of moles is not absolute, it is just a reference hardness to separate the minerals. In fact, a diamond is 16 times harder and more resistant than a quartz crystal, since the absolute hardness of quartz is 100 against 1600 of diamond, and in this simple case it will already give you the answer whether or not you have an authentic diamond in your hands. Go to a construction material store or a paint store and ask for a wet sandpaper. These sandpapers are made of carbide, a type of industrial ruby that has a hardness of 9 and scratches with practically anything except an authentic diamond pass your stone on a coarse wet sandpaper. If it is a diamond, the sandpaper will wear away and the stone will remain intact, but if it is a quartz crystal or any other stone, you will start to see a white powder coming out and the stone will wear away. In this case, your stone is not a diamond. But finally, after analyzing your stone as we show in this video, including doing a test with the wet sandpaper, you came to the conclusion that everything indicates that your stone is really a diamond. Diamond in this case. How do you know how much it is worth and how to sell it? The first thing to do would be to take your stone to a geology service to get a quote for the issuance of a certificate. Gemologists can charge from $100 to $300 on average to analyze your stone and confirm whether it is in fact a diamond, but a complete report with all the information about your stone can cost up to $1,500. A complete report has all the information about the stone obtained through laboratory tests, and this test seems dry at first glance. But certified diamonds can be worth up to 3 times more, and this would be the best way for you to get a fair value for your diamond. If you think it is difficult to find a buyer, you are wrong. There are many people willing to pay a good fortune for a rare diamond, and since the subject of precious stones interests you, start following the official pages on social media of knee braces and gemologists so that you can become more up to date on the subject and know that there are really many people willing to pay high prices. And take the opportunity to follow us on our Instagram, which is Pedras e Ponto Encontras. There we always post tips about precious stones, as well as many real precious stones at affordable prices, which are jewelry made with the rarest wood in the world and a real diamond set in it. Well, I hope this video has already answered all your questions about diamonds and crystals. But if you still have any questions, leave them in the comments below so that we know. Here in the description is full of videos with tips on how to identify a. If it were possible to make a window glass made of the purest and most crystalline diamond possible, you would still be able to see your reflection in it. That is, in addition to seeing the other side, you would see yourself as if you were in front of a faded mirror. An example of this is the glass called reflective glass, which is used today in architecture, which is a glass with a semi-metallic finish that has precisely this effect. Another thing that comes from the characteristics of the stones is related to weight. I mentioned a little while ago a characteristic that you should keep in mind. Here we would use it later because the time has come. I talked about relative density. The density of a room is 2.66 and that of a diamond is 3.5. This means that a diamond weighs 3.5 times more than water and quartz weighs 2.6 times. That is, if you could have a liter of diamonds, it would weigh 3.5 kilograms, and if we had a liter of crystal, it would need 2.6 kilograms. Or diamonds are much heavier than crystals when comparing stones of the same size. Of course, since diamonds are usually always small stones, you may have difficulty feeling this weight in your hand, but the relative density test can be easily done at home with a common precision scale that has at least 2 decimal places after the comma. And finally, the most important diamond characteristic of all is hardness against scratches. This is the characteristic that makes diamonds in nature when worn become practically smooth and polished, since other stones usually cannot scratch diamonds, unlike crystals that can be dull and worn. Crystals have a hardness of 7 and diamonds have a hardness of 10, but this hardness is not even close because this scale of moles is not absolute, it is just a reference hardness to separate the minerals. In fact, a diamond is 16 times harder and more resistant than a quartz crystal, since the absolute hardness of quartz is 100 against 1600 of diamond, and in this simple case it will already give you the answer.